Jody Mac and Johnny Mac doing you on Birds 365 of Football Friday as free agency week continues. Most of the big names have come off the board, but there are still some out there, two of which for me are Philadelphia Eagles. One we were just talking about, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. The other one that we've talked very little about is Isaac Seumalo. When free agency started, there were two guys on the Eagles that I thought had a very good chance of being elsewhere, and that was Javon Hargrave. And if Jason Kelce re-signed here in Philadelphia, then that was pretty much a death knell for Isaac Seumalo. The Eagles only have so much money to go around. And Howie Roseman's done a really nice job at divvying up the cap flexibility that he did have, which probably painted Isaac out the door. If you believe that you can just move Cam Jurgens from backup center to starting right guard, Isaac should probably land elsewhere. Have you heard any rumors about Isaac?
I heard the Bears early, but then the Bears signed Nate Davis, who's a guard from Tennessee. So that kind of closed that door. No, it's been very quiet. I'm sure very disappointing from Isaac. I think it has to do with his foot injury. That was a very, very serious Lisfranc fracture. If you remember, he had 2 surgeries, couldn't walk for about 6 months. That's the kind of stuff.
How do you play this year?
Which is amazing. But, you know, when people look at it, and Les brought up a good comparison earlier in the week, Les Bowen with Jay Ajayi. Look, everybody knew Jay Ajayi could play, but all the medical people said, not going to be long. Shelf life isn't going to be great. So it's about more than he got back on the field and played at a high level. But if you have team doctors out there saying, well, it's not going to be long, it's going to break down again. That's part of it where I think a lot of people don't think about the medicals. And that's why it gets talked about more around draft picks. And we always talk about the combine. By far, the most important part of the combine is the medical evaluations, not the stuff going on the field. By far, the most important part for NFL teams is the medical evaluation. And I don't even know if this is true, Joe, but that all I can speculate because he played.
I'm asking you to speculate. You're speculating.
He played at such a high level, and guards aren't going to get paid a ton, but he's a better player than Nate Davis, who's not a bad player, but and the Bears made their decision, and they had a ton of money to play with, and still do. So yeah, it's very disappointing. Was it? You know, I was thinking about it. Who did I think was definitely leaving? It was Hargrave. It was TJ. It was Miles, and it was Isaac. Those were the guys I thought were definitely leaving. In TJ's case, I thought he was going to get more than he got. Miles, I think, got a nice deal. What he should have gotten. Javon, what he should have gotten, what we thought he was going to get, 20 million plus. And then, Isaac, bit of a surprise to me. And that's all I can think of.
Right, because like I said, I like Nick Davis. I think he's a good player. I know that Isaac Seumalo's been a better player than him to this point. How does he get 10 million per? And again, who knows? Maybe there's a team out there that's going to jump in and say, oh, yeah, we'll give you what you want. But it doesn't look that way. Same way with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. There may be one team. Only takes one. There's an overused.
And there we say, could the Eagles get him back? You start thinking that way. Can the Eagles get him back? Because all these people, and Jeff just brought it up. Oh, you can't sit a second-round pick for 2. Why not? Sure you can. He was picked to be a center. He's still cost-effective. It was a luxury pick to begin with. Why the hell not? Can't you sit him for 2 years? The short answer is, yeah, you can sit him for 2 years.
And right, wrong, or indifferent, we've judged Howie Roseman as a guy who's got a little sentimentality attached to him. That if you did it for the Eagles for a period of time, you were a contributor to a winning team, maybe he'll go the extra mile for you. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. Well, why wouldn't Isaac Seumalo fall into that same category?
Yeah, I mean, he loves Stout. Everybody loves Stout. Yeah, I mean, the longer it goes on, the more I start thinking, obviously, that the Eagles can get him back on a cost-effective deal. And why wouldn't they want him back? Stoutland loves him. He loves the team. He loves Stoutland. Very comfortable in this
The guy who
system.
was left loves him too.
Yeah. Well,
Kelsey loves
Kelsey and Lane. Lane loves him. You get to play in between Kelsey and Lane. I mean, why not? The longer it goes, that's the way I'd be thinking. I'd say, Isaac, and I'm sure Howie's done this. We'd love to have you back. This is what we can do. If you make your decision.
And as much love as we pour on the Eagles offensive line coach, which we should, you can only make water out of wine so many times. And there is the possibility of injury. All right, Kelsey never gets hurt. Never mind center. But Lane Johnson.
Oh, he always gets hurt. He just plays through it.
Right, plays right through it. The Eagles stayed relatively healthy on the offensive line last year. Lane at the end of the season, but he shortly played through that. But the left side stayed healthy pretty much all year long. What did the backup offensive lineman who ended up going free agent this year, Dillard, how many games did he start last year? One? Mailata missed one?
Yeah, I think he only missed one and
missed
came
one.
back.
And Dickerson stayed healthy basically all year, Kelsey all year, Isaac all year, and Lane got hurt at the end of the year. That's pretty healthy along the offensive line. To bank on that kind of health for second consecutive year, you're probably going against the percentages. So if you can get Isaac Seumalo back, which keeps your second-round draft pick from last year in the jack of all trades fill-in, he's going to be our guy if anybody goes down in the interior of our line. That's a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Andre didn't even start one game because
one
Jordan
game he
came
didn't start
back.
one.
He played significantly when Jordan got hurt in that Jacksonville game, but then
Right.
Jordan came back. That's what I was checking. He came back. He probably shouldn't have. The Eagles at first thought that was a season-ending injury for Jordan Mailata. And that was a big break. We just talked about it at corner. That's one of the big stories about the Eagles season is how healthy they were as a whole. Offensive line, corner, they were very healthy as a whole. And that stuff tends to regress to the mean a little bit. So you're right. You're right.
Did Dickerson start all 17?
I'd have to look it up. I don't recall him. I recall he was banged up a little bit, but
I know
think
Dillard jumped in and played some guard.
Yeah, he would come in. He had an injury and he would leave for a few games, but he would always come back.
Right.
Those guys tend to be very, very tough, and Kelsey as well. I mean, I've seen I can't tell you at least 2 or 3 times over the past few years, I've said, all right, Kelsey's out for the season because the injury looks so significant. Now he just comes right back in. But I'm trying to look up Landon as we speak. As a whole, tremendous, obviously, health. And look, I give the Eagles training staff credit. But I don't know, there's certain things you can't control. And, injuries is one of them. But yeah, Landon played all 17, started all 17. Now he missed a bunch of snaps. I believe it was an ankle injury, and he kept coming in and coming out, things like that.
So, and because we haven't heard any major rumors from around the league, it's legit to ask the question, what number would they be willing to bring him back at? If it's a really team-friendly deal, then you got to snap it up. But if it's a close to what Nate Davis got, I think he's a better player, but again, same thing I said earlier in the show about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. There's your opinion, and once you get to free agency, there's 32 other opinions. And when you put it on the scale, 32 outweighs one every day of the week and twice on Sundays. So, Isaac, if you're not going to get what you thought you should get or believed you should get, well, then you got to adjust your thinking. And if it brings the Eagles back into the ballpark, I hope they just haven't dismissed the possibility.
I hope so, too. That's my concern. Because my concern, like, I knew pretty much that the Eagles were going to move on from Miles Sanders, even if he didn't get the deal he was looking for. Like, I think they wanted a change at running back. And I think it was more Howie driven than Nick driven, but nonetheless, I think they were looking for a change. I hope they're not just saying what others are saying, that, well, we drafted Cam Jurgens, he's got to play this year. I don't think they're saying that. I don't know why they would be saying that. They drafted him to play center. Why move him to guard? Like, if you have to, you have to. And Isaac walks and gets $10 million a year, you have to. But if you don't have to, why would you not want the Pro Bowl alternate guard? And I would argue he should have made the Pro Bowl. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
if you can get him back.
Right. And the league will help dictate it. He knows what the offers are that are out there right now. Hopefully the offers are in the Eagles ballpark. Again, here's the one thing we know about the Eagles. They've done a great job, Howie always does, managing the cap and creating room. They still haven't got the Jalen Hurts deal done. And I'm sure they have a
worried
number.
About that. Are people worried about that? I don't know why. I don't know why. It's not if, it's when. It's not, there shouldn't be any consternation that they're not Baltimore. They're going to get it done. I don't know if there's any consternation because of Lamar Jackson. I guess that would be the only consternation
in play right now, but in my estimation, it's legit.
I wouldn't worry about it. They're not. I'll say this: they're not losing Jalen Hurts. They're not losing Jalen Hurts.
And I think you and I look at this different. We end up in the same place, but we get there differently. I'm not worried about it, but not because I know the deal is going to get done. I'm not worried about it because if there are hurdles along the way, Lamar Jackson being one of them, Hurts, Herbert being a potential one, Burrow being a potential one, Jalen Hurts will be fine. If it drags on and it didn't get done, and media guys like Jody McDonald or John McMullen or Sal Palantonio or anybody on WIP and Marcus Hayes start, well, why isn't it done? Well, the Eagles disrespect. But Jalen Hurts will be fine. There are certain individuals who will go down that immediate disrespect road. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Jalen Hurts will just keep his mouth shut. Jalen Hurts will just show up and play like the leader that he is. Jalen Hurts will not let his contract negotiation affect his play, which should be the number one concern, because that's the only thing that you worry about is if you can't get a deal done, what's a guy thinking while you're still negotiating and trying to get it done? I've seen teams go awry because of mishandled negotiations. I don't fear that at all with Jalen Hurts because of the player that he is. Do I just it'll get done because why? Because they got Carson Wentz done, so they got to. This is a little bit different. The quarterback market continues to change. It continues to go up. Howie has had to do what he's had to do to keep the roster intact. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, but I don't think it's the potential downfall of the Philadelphia.
And I do go back to Carson. I look it up. June 6th. June 1st is a key date. All right. So if you do want to get concerned, and again, my advice is to not be concerned. But if you do want to get concerned, don't get concerned until June 1st and the days after June 1st. That's a big date on the NFL calendar. That's when a lot of things flip from a salary cap standpoint. It's much more likely the deal, if it's coming this off season, and I believe it is, it's much more likely it will happen early June than right now. But
Right,
nonetheless,
because there were a lot of people, John, not you or I, but a lot of people said, "Oh, they'll get it done before free agency ever kicks in."
no, well,
No, it wasn't.
no.
They'll get this thing done. It's Howie Roseman, it's Jalen Hurts. You want to? No. And now we'll be several weeks in the free agency, and it still won't be done. And yes, they'll have the draft, and it still won't be done. So those who said it's gonna get done, it's gonna get done in a matter of days, a matter of weeks. No, I think it's going into June. I firmly believe that. And yeah, I do believe the Lamar Jackson's the only one, because I think both Herbert and Burrow are going to have to wait. I don't think their teams, they've got another year to wait. They don't have to get anything done because they got a 5-year contract that's first-round draft picks. So they got more flexibility than the Eagles do. The Lamar Jackson contract is the key domino that's got to fall first before Hurts gets done.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar complicates things a little bit, but I don't think it complicates things that much. And yeah, I would say early June would be my target area for.
All right, this is one of the things we want to run by our next guest. He's been covering the entire league for decades. Gary Myers is going to jump aboard next year on Birds 365.